I was halfway through pumping gas when I realized I'd left my wallet on the counter inside. Typical me. My sister always said I'd forget my own head if it wasn't attached, and she was probably right. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as I walked back into the station, making that annoying, flickering sound that reminded me why I hated driving at night. It was almost midnight, and I'd been on the road for 6 hours trying to make it to Portland for my sister's wedding. I was already going to be late, which was also typical me. The old guy behind the counter, maybe 70, with thick glasses and a name tag that said Earl, was staring at me weird. Not just looking, but really staring, like I had something on my face, or maybe I was growing a second head. Forgot my wallet, I said, grabbing it off the counter where I'd left it like an idiot. You heading north? He asked. His voice was rough, like he'd been smoking for 50 years. Yeah. Route 47 to the coast. Why? He didn't answer right away. Just kept staring at me with this look that made my stomach feel weird. What time you planning to get there? I don't know. Maybe 6 or 7 in the morning if I drive straight through. I laughed nervously because the way he was looking at me was seriously creeping me out. Unless I fall asleep at the wheel, which, knowing me, could happen. I meant it as a joke, but he didn't laugh. You can't drive through tonight, he said flatly. What? Why not? Millbrook, the town about 40 miles up the road. Something's wrong there. I should have just nodded politely and left. That would have been the smart thing to do. But I've never been accused of being smart, so instead I said, Wrong how? Earl leaned forward on the counter. People go in at night and don't come out. Or they come out different. Changed. My nephew drove through 3 weeks ago. Found his car 2 days later on the side of the road. Doors locked, windows up, keys in the ignition. But he was gone. Just vanished. That's crazy, I said. But something about the way he said it made the hair on my neck stand up. Police won't even go near it after dark. State troopers neither. What's in Millbrook? I asked, even though part of me really didn't want to know. Earl opened his mouth to answer, but before he could, every phone in the place went off at once. That horrible blaring sound that emergency alerts make, the one that sounds like the world is ending. I fumbled for my phone in my pocket, nearly dropping it because my hands were suddenly shaking. The screen was so bright it hurt my eyes. Emergency alert. Atmospheric anomaly detected. Millbrook County, stay indoors. Do not go outside between sunset and sunrise. Avoid all windows. If you see the sky change, take shelter immediately. This is not a drill. What the hell is an atmospheric anomaly? I said out loud, which was a stupid question because obviously Earl didn't know either. He was staring at his phone, his face going completely white. Oh no, oh God, it's happening again. What's happening again? But he wasn't listening to me anymore. He was moving toward the windows, pulling down these metal shutters I hadn't even noticed before. Help me with these. Now. I should have helped him right away, but instead, because I'm an idiot, I walked to the door and looked outside. The sky was wrong. I don't know how else to describe it. The stars weren't just twinkling. They were moving, swirling around like water going down a drain. And the moon looked like it was pulsing, getting bigger and smaller, like it was breathing. Holy shit, I whispered. Don't look at it, Earl screamed, grabbing my shoulder and yanking me away from the door. Jesus Christ, kid, don't look at the sky. But I'd already seen it, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. It was the most beautiful and most terrifying thing I'd ever seen in my life. My phone buzzed again with another alert. Do not look at the sky. Take shelter immediately. Emergency services are unavailable. We need to cover the windows, Earl was saying, his voice high and panicked. All of them. Right now. That's when I heard someone screaming outside. A woman's voice, coming from one of the cars in the parking lot. There were maybe 5 or 6 vehicles out there, and I suddenly noticed they all had their windows covered with blankets and cardboard. "Someone's in trouble," I said, heading for the door. "No!" Earl grabbed my arm. "You can't go out there." "But she's screaming. We have to help her." I pulled away from him, which was incredibly stupid, and pushed open the door. The cold night air hit me, and I could hear the woman more clearly now. She was crying and screaming at the same time. "Please, someone help me." I looked at it. Oh, God. I looked at it. I ran toward the sound, toward a sedan with newspapers taped over the windows. One of the newspapers had fallen off, leaving a gap. Through the windshield, I could see a woman in the driver's seat, her hands pressed against her face. "Ma'am, are you okay?" Stupid question. Obviously, she wasn't okay. That's when I noticed the man standing in the middle of the parking lot. He was just standing there, looking up at the sky with his arms stretched out wide. He was smiling. Not a normal smile, but this huge grin that showed all his teeth. "Sir?" I called out. "Sir, you need to get inside." He didn't respond, didn't even look at me, just kept staring up and smiling. Then his nose started bleeding. Just a trickle at first, then more, running down over his lips and chin. But he didn't stop smiling. "Sir, your nose is bleeding. You need help." I started walking toward him, because apparently I have a death wish, when Earl screamed from the station doorway. "Get back here! Now! Don't go near him!" The man fell to his knees, still looking up, still grinning. Blood was coming out of his ears now, too. Dark red streams running down the sides of his neck. My brain finally caught up with what my eyes were seeing, and I turned and ran back to the station. Earl pulled me inside and slammed the door, immediately covering the window with a thick blanket. "You fucking idiot!" he yelled at me. "You could have died!" "What's happening to him? We need to call an ambulance." "There's nothing anyone can do for him now. Once you really look at it, once you really see it, you're gone." "That doesn't make any sense." "Does any of this make sense?" He had a point. We stood there in the near darkness, just the emergency light in the corner giving off a weak glow. I could hear more screaming outside now, multiple voices, some crying, some laughing. The laughing was worse than the crying. "How long does this last?" I asked, my voice shaking. Earl checked his watch. "Usually till dawn, sometimes longer. 5 days was the longest." 5 days? People were stuck like this for 5 days? In Millbrook, that's where it's worst. My phone rang, making me jump. Unknown number. I answered it without thinking. "Hello? Is this Ethan Torres?" A woman's voice, professional but stressed. "Yeah, who's this?" "Special Agent Hannah Reeves, FBI. I'm calling everyone in the area with federal credentials. We need your help." "How did you get my number?" "Mr. Torres, are you in a safe location right now?" "I'm in a gas station." Windows are covered. There's some kind of thing happening outside. "I know. Stay where you are. Don't look at the sky. Don't let anyone else look at it either." "What is this thing?" I asked, pressing the phone harder against my ear like that would somehow make her answer make more sense. "What's happening?" "We don't know exactly," Agent Reeves said, "but it's killing people. A lot of people. And we need help understanding what's happening to the victims." "I'm a forensic consultant, not a whatever this needs. I analyze evidence in labs, not—" "You're the closest qualified person we have," she interrupted. "We're setting up a command center in Millbrook. There's a convoy leaving from your location in 30 minutes. Armored vehicles, no windows. They'll take you there." Every part of me that had any common sense was screaming to say no, to tell her to find someone else, to hang up and hide in this gas station until this whole nightmare was over. "Okay," I said instead. "I'll do it." Earl was staring at me like I'd just volunteered to jump off a cliff. "Thank you, Mr. Torres. The convoy will—" The line went dead. I looked at my phone. No signal. All the bars had just disappeared. "Are you insane?" Earl hissed. "You're going to Millbrook?" "The FBI needs help. People are dying." "People are dying out there, too." He pointed toward the covered window. "And you almost became one of them." "What makes you think you can help anyone?" He was right, of course. I had a long history of making terrible decisions, like the time I tried to help a stranded motorist and ended up getting my car stolen, or when I saw a house fire and ran inside to check for people before the firefighters arrived, nearly getting myself killed when part of the ceiling collapsed. My sister called it a hero complex. My therapist called it poor impulse control and a concerning disregard for personal safety. But I couldn't just sit here and do nothing. "How long until dawn?" I asked. Earl checked his watch. "About 6 hours, maybe 7. 6 hours. I sat down on the floor, my back against the wall, and tried not to think about the man outside bleeding from his face. Tried not to think about the woman screaming in her car. "Tell me about Millbrook," I said. "What happened there?" Earl sat down too, on the other side of the small space. In the dim emergency light, he looked about 100 years old. "Started 3 months ago. Someone reported seeing strange lights in the sky. Not like UFOs or anything. The sky itself was wrong. Glowing weird colors, moving in ways it shouldn't. Then people started disappearing. First it was 1 or 2, then 10, then 50. 50 people? Millbrook's a small town. Maybe 2,000 people lived there. Now there's less than 300. My stomach twisted. Where did everyone go? Some ran. Got out before it got bad, but most— He trailed off, staring at nothing. Most of them looked up. We sat in silence for a while. Outside, the screaming had stopped, which somehow made everything worse. The quiet felt heavy, oppressive, like the air itself was pressing down on us. "My sister's getting married tomorrow," I said, not really knowing why I was telling him this. "Today, I guess, technically. I'm supposed to be there." "You got family? You should have turned around when I told you to." "Yeah, probably." My phone buzzed. I looked down, expecting another emergency alert, but it was a text from an unknown number. "Convoy arriving in 15 minutes. Be ready to move quickly. Stay low. Don't look up. Reeves." "They're coming," I said. Earl shook his head slowly. "You're making a mistake, kid." "Probably. I'm good at those. I meant it as a joke, but it came out flat. I was scared. Really scared. My hands wouldn't stop shaking." "When they get here," Earl said quietly, "you run straight to the vehicle. Don't stop. Don't look around. And for God's sake, don't look up." "What about you?" "I've got supplies here. Food, water. I can wait it out." "What about the people in the cars outside?" He didn't answer. Didn't need to. We both knew they were already gone. Time moved weird after that. Sometimes it felt like hours were passing, sometimes like seconds. I kept checking my phone even though there was no signal. Kept listening to the silence outside and wondering what was worse, hearing screams or hearing nothing at all. Finally, I heard engines. Multiple vehicles moving fast. Earl moved to peek through a tiny gap in the covered window. "They're here." 3 armored trucks, military-looking. "Should I go now?" "Wait for them to signal you. If you go out too early—" A loud bang on the door made us both jump. "That's the signal," Earl said, moving to unlock the door. "Remember, run fast, stay low, don't look up." He opened the door just a crack. Outside, I could see a massive black vehicle like a SWAT truck, but bigger. The back doors were open, and someone in full tactical gear was gesturing frantically at me. "Go!" Earl shouted. I ran. It was maybe 20 feet to the truck, but it felt like a mile. The air outside felt wrong. Too thick, too cold. I kept my eyes on the ground, on my feet, on anything but the sky above me. But I could feel it up there, could sense something massive and terrible looking down at me. My foot caught on something, probably nothing, probably just my own clumsy feet, and I stumbled, barely catching myself. The tactical guy grabbed my arm and hauled me into the truck. "Inside, inside, inside," he yelled. The doors slammed shut behind me, and suddenly everything was dark except for small red emergency lights. There were 5 other people in the truck, all wearing tactical gear, all looking at me like I was an idiot. "You're Torres?" one of them asked. A woman, maybe 30, with her hair pulled back tight. "Yeah, Ethan Torres." "I'm Lieutenant Hannah Reeves. We spoke on the phone." "You're FBI?" "Was. Now I'm whatever this is." She gestured around the truck. "Welcome to Operation Blindside. Try not to die." The truck lurched forward, and I grabbed onto a handle on the wall to keep from falling over. Because, of course, I hadn't thought to sit down first. "What's the situation in Millbrook?" I asked. Reeves and the other soldiers exchanged looks. "Bad," she finally said. "We lost contact with the command center 40 minutes ago. Last transmission said the phenomenon was intensifying. We're going in blind." "Great. That's great." One of the soldiers, a young guy who looked barely 20, laughed nervously. "You always this optimistic?" "I try to be realistic," I said, "which is why I'm wondering why you brought me into this." "I'm not military. I'm not even a field agent. I look at dead bodies in controlled environments and write reports." "We need someone who can examine the victims," Reeves said. "Someone who won't panic when they see what's been done to them." "What has been done to them?" She pulled out a tablet and handed it to me. "Brace yourself." I looked at the screen and immediately wished I hadn't. The photo showed a woman lying on an examination table. At first glance, she looked almost normal, but her eyes were wrong, sunken in, deflated, like they'd collapsed inward. And there was fluid coming out of her nose and ears. Dark, viscous fluid that looked almost black in the photograph. "Her brain liquefied while she was still alive," Reeves said quietly. "It took 45 minutes. She was conscious for most of it." I handed the tablet back quickly, my stomach churning. Jesus Christ. That's one of the lucky ones. Some take hours, some take days. Lucky? At least it ended. The truck hit a bump and I nearly fell again before catching myself on the wall. My mind was racing, trying to process what I'd just seen, trying to understand how something like that was even possible. "How many victims have you recovered?" I asked. 87, Reeves said. "That we know of. Could be more." 87 people. 87 people whose brains had turned to liquid while they were still alive and aware. "What causes it?" I asked. "Is it radiation? Some kind of chemical?" "We don't know. Every test we've run comes back normal. No toxins, no radiation, no pathogens. It's like their brains just decide to stop being solid." One of the other soldiers spoke up, an older guy with a scar across his cheek. "It's the sky. Whatever's up there, looking at it does something to your head. Breaks something inside." "That's not scientifically possible," I said. "Neither is any of this," the young soldier pointed out. He had a point. The truck slowed down, and Reeves moved to look at something on a monitor mounted to the wall. I couldn't see what it showed, but her expression darkened. "What is it?" I asked. "We're approaching Millbrook. Everyone stay alert. Torres, when we stop, you stay close to me. Don't wander off. Don't try to help anyone without checking with me first. And most importantly, don't look up." "Yeah, I got it. I'm serious. I've lost 3 team members to this thing. They were trained professionals who knew the dangers. You're a civilian who tripped running 20 feet to a truck. Your survival instincts are clearly terrible. Hey, I caught myself before I fell. Barely. She wasn't wrong. The truck came to a complete stop. Through the walls, I could hear nothing. No traffic sounds, no birds, no wind. Just silence. "All right," Reeves said, checking her weapon. "Welcome to Millbrook. Try to stay alive." The doors opened, and we stepped out into hell. The first thing that hit me was the smell, like copper and rot mixed together, thick enough that I could taste it. I gagged, pressing my hand over my nose and mouth, which did absolutely nothing to help. "You get used to it," one of the soldiers said, though he looked like he was about to throw up too. We were standing in what must have been Millbrook's main street. Small shops lined both sides, a diner, a hardware store, a pharmacy. Everything looked normal at first glance. The streetlights were on, casting pools of yellow light. The traffic lights at the intersection were still cycling through their colors. But there were no people, no cars moving, no lights in any of the windows. And above us, the sky was that same wrong, swirling nightmare I'd seen at the gas station. "Eyes down," Reeves ordered. "Always eyes down." The team moved in formation, and I stuck close to Reeves like she told me to. We walked down the middle of the street, boots echoing on the pavement. The silence was suffocating. That's when I noticed the cars. There were dozens of them, parked haphazardly on the street, doors open, engines still running. One had crashed into a storefront, its front end crumpled, windshield shattered. But no driver, no blood, just an empty car. "Where is everyone?" I whispered. "Dead, hidden, or worse," Reeves said without looking at me. "What's worse than dead?" She didn't answer. We reached what looked like a town hall, a brick building with white columns and a flag hanging limp outside. This was supposed to be the command center, according to Reeves, but when we got to the door, it was hanging open, swaying slightly in a breeze I couldn't feel. "Command center, this is Alpha Team," Reeves said into her radio. "We're at your location. Please respond." "Command center, do you copy?" More static. One of the soldiers, the older guy with the scar, moved to the door and peered inside. "Lights are on. I don't see anyone." "We go in slow," Reeves said. 2-by-2 formation. Torres, you stay between me and Davis." She nodded at the young soldier who'd joked with me earlier. We entered the building. The fluorescent lights overhead were buzzing, that same annoying sound from the gas station. The lobby was empty except for an overturned chair and some papers scattered on the floor. There was a coffee mug on the reception desk, still steaming. "Someone was here recently," I said, pointing at the mug. "Could be a trap," the scarred soldier muttered. "A trap set by who?" Davis asked. "There's nobody here." We moved deeper into the building. Every room we checked was the same. Lights on, signs of recent activity, but no people. In one office, a computer was still running, showing a video feed of the street outside. In another, someone's lunch was half-eaten on a desk, the sandwich still fresh. "This doesn't make sense," I said. "Where did they all go?" That's when we heard it, a voice coming from somewhere above us, singing. "Ring around the rosy, pocket full of posies." It was a woman's voice, light and cheerful, like a mother singing to a child. But there was something wrong with it. The words were stretched out too long, the pitch wavering in a way that made my skin crawl. "Second floor," Reeves said quietly. "Davis, Torres, you're with me. The rest of you, secure this floor." "I really don't think I should," I started, but Reeves was already heading for the stairs, and Davis was gesturing for me to follow. The singing got louder as we climbed the stairs. Ashes, ashes, we all fall down. The second floor hallway was darker than the first floor. Half the lights were out, creating patches of deep shadow. The voice was coming from a room at the end of the hall, the door slightly ajar. We moved slowly, carefully. Reeves had her gun raised, Davis had his. I had nothing except a growing certainty that this was a terrible idea, and I should have stayed downstairs. Ashes, ashes. We all fall down. Reeves pushed the door open. The room had been an office once. Now it was something else. The walls were covered in drawings, hundreds of them, sketched in what looked like crayon or marker. All of them showed the same thing: the sky, swirling patterns, impossible shapes, things that hurt to look at even in crude drawing form. And in the center of the room, a woman sat on the floor, rocking back and forth. She was maybe 40, wearing a police uniform. Her eyes were open, staring at nothing. "Ma'am," Reeves said carefully, "can you hear me?" The woman stopped singing, stopped rocking, turned her head slowly to look at us. Her eyes were bleeding, not a little bit, streams of dark red running down her cheeks like tears. "It's so beautiful up there," she whispered. "Why won't you look? Why won't you see?" "We need to get her out of here," I said, starting to move forward. "Torres, wait," Reeves began. But I was already moving because apparently my brain shuts off when someone needs help. I knelt down next to the woman, trying not to stare at the blood on her face. "Ma'am, we're here to help you. Can you stand up?" She smiled. It was worse than the bleeding eyes. "Help? You want to help? Yes, let us get you somewhere safe." "Safe?" She laughed and blood bubbled out of her mouth. "Nowhere is safe. It sees everything. It sees you right now." Her hand shot out and grabbed my wrist. Her grip was impossibly strong, her fingers digging in so hard I felt bones grinding together. "Look up," she hissed. "Look up and see." "See!" She yanked my head back, trying to force me to look at the ceiling, at the window, at the sky beyond. I fought against her grip, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might explode. "Reeves! Help!" Davis pulled the woman off me, and she went wild, screaming and thrashing. Reeves tried to restrain her, but the woman was moving with inhuman strength, like her muscles didn't care about their own limitations. "It wants you," the woman screamed. "It wants all of you. Look up and see." Then, suddenly, she went limp, just collapsed like someone had cut her strings. Davis caught her before she hit the floor, laying her down gently. "Is she—" I started. Blood poured from her nose and ears, thick and dark. Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. Her eyes rolled back in her head. "Seizure," Reeves said. "Her brain is—" The woman's skull made a sound, a wet, crunching sound that I'll hear in my nightmares forever. Her head literally caved in on itself, collapsing as everything inside turned to liquid. I scrambled backward, my stomach heaving, and threw up in the corner of the room. When I was done, I looked back. The woman was dead, her head an impossible shape, dark fluid pooling around her. "That's what happens," Reeves said quietly. "That's what looking at it does." "She was still conscious," Davis whispered, his face pale. "Did you see? She was aware the whole time." I wiped my mouth with the back of my hand, still shaking. "We need to leave this room. Now." As we headed back to the hallway, I noticed something on the woman's desk. A photo in a frame, lying face down. I picked it up, stupid I know, but I couldn't help myself. It showed the same woman, smiling, with 2 kids and a man who must have been her husband. They were at some kind of fair, cotton candy and carnival rides in the background. Everyone was laughing. "Her family's probably dead too," Reeves said, seeing what I was looking at. "Everyone who lived here is either dead or contaminated." Contaminated? That's what we're calling it. Once you look at it, really look at it, you're contaminated. There's no cure, no treatment. You just wait until your brain liquefies. I set the photo down carefully. "How long do they have?" "Depends. Could be minutes, could be days. The longest we've seen is 72 hours. 3 days. 3 days of knowing your brain was slowly turning to liquid. 3 days of waiting to die. We made it back downstairs where the rest of the team was waiting. The scarred soldier, whose name I learned was Jackson, had found something. "Conference room," he said, jerking his thumb toward a door. "You need to see this." The conference room table was covered in maps and reports. Photos pinned to the walls showed aerial views of Millbrook and the surrounding area. And in the center of it all was a laptop, still on, showing a video feed. "What is this?" Reeves asked. Jackson hit play on the video. It showed this same room filled with people in military uniforms and civilian clothes, a meeting in progress. Then, suddenly, everyone in the video stopped talking. They all turned to look at the windows, at the sky outside. One by one, they stood up and walked to the windows. Some pressed their faces against the glass. Others just stared. "Command, step away from the windows," a voice on the video said. "I repeat, step away." Blood started running from their noses, from their ears. But they kept staring, kept smiling those horrible smiles. The video ended with everyone in the room collapsed on the floor, their heads caved in, dark pools spreading across the carpet. "That was 6 hours ago," Jackson said. "I looked around the conference room, saw the stains on the carpet where they'd cleaned up the bodies, saw the windows, now covered with thick black material." "This whole town is a death trap," I said. "We need to leave. Now." "We can't," Reeves said. "Not until we understand what this is. Not until we find a way to stop it." "Stop it? How are we supposed to stop the sky?" Before she could answer, Davis called out from the doorway. "Hey, I found something. There's a guy in the basement. He's alive." We all rushed to follow him to a door marked Basement Access. Davis was already halfway down the stairs. "Davis, wait!" Reeves shouted. "Don't go down alone." But he was young and impulsive and apparently as bad at following safety protocols as I was. By the time we caught up with him, he was standing in the basement, staring at a man huddled in the corner. The man was maybe 60, wearing a janitor's uniform. He had duct tape over his eyes, layers of it, wrapped completely around his head. "Sir," Davis said, approaching slowly. "Can you hear me?" The man's head snapped up. "Don't look! Don't look! Don't look!" He kept repeating it, rocking back and forth like the woman upstairs had been doing. "We're not looking," Davis said gently. "We're here to help." No help. No help. It sees. It always sees. I noticed something then. The basement had no windows, no openings to the outside at all, just concrete walls and ceiling. "How long have you been down here?" I asked. 3 months. 94 days, since it started. "You've been in this basement for 3 months?" He nodded frantically. "Safe here. No windows. Can't see me if I can't see it." Reeves crouched down next to him. "Sir, what's your name?" "Harold. Harold Reese. I'm the janitor. I was cleaning when it started. I heard the screaming. I came down here and I never left." "Harold, we need information. Do you know what this thing is? Where it came from?" He started laughing, a high, broken sound that made my teeth hurt. "It was always here. We just finally saw it. And once you see it, it sees you." "What do you mean it was always here?" Reeves asked, her voice calm but insistent. "Harold, I need you to explain." Harold's hands were shaking as he pulled at the duct tape around his eyes, not removing it, just touching it like he needed to make sure it was still there. "The observatory. It started at the observatory." "What observatory?" I asked. "On Miller's Peak. 3 miles outside town. They were studying something. Some kind of atmospheric phenomenon. They called it a spatial anomaly in the sky. Said it had always been there, we just never had the equipment to see it before." Reeves and Jackson exchanged looks. "Do you know what happened to the people at the observatory?" Harold's laugh got higher, more manic. "They looked at it too long, tried to study it, tried to understand it. You can't understand it. You can only see it, and once you see it, it sees you back. How many people were at the observatory? Reeves pressed. 12. 12 scientists. All dead now. All of them looked. Davis had moved away from Harold, backing toward the stairs. His face was pale, and I could see his hand shaking on his rifle. "Lieutenant, we should go. This guy is losing it." "He's been alone in a basement for 3 months," I said. "Of course he's losing it." "He's still the most coherent person we've found in this town," Reeves pointed out. "Harold, listen to me. Is there anyone else alive? Anyone who hasn't been contaminated?" Harold went very still. "The church. Some people went to the church. Old building, stone walls, no windows. They might still be there. Might be." "Where's the church?" 4 blocks west. Big white building with a cross. Can't miss it." Reeves stood up. "Jackson, Davis, we're heading to the church. We need to find survivors. Get them out of here." "And then what?" Jackson asked. "Where do we take them? This thing is spreading. How long before it covers the whole state? The whole country?" "One problem at a time," Reeves said, but I could hear the doubt in her voice. We started heading back upstairs, but I stopped and looked back at Harold. "Are you coming with us? We can protect you." He shook his head violently. "No, no, no, no. Safe here. I stay here. You can't stay in this basement forever." "I can try." There was something incredibly sad about that. This man, alone in the dark, slowly going insane because it was better than the alternative. I wanted to help him, to convince him to come with us, but Reeves grabbed my arm. "Torres, we're leaving. Now." I let her pull me away, even though every part of me wanted to stay and help Harold. But what could I do? Drag him out screaming? Force him to leave his one safe place? We emerged back into the main floor of the town hall. Through the covered windows, I could see it was still dark outside. The phenomenon hadn't stopped. If anything, it felt stronger, heavier, like the air itself was pressing down on us. "How long until dawn?" I asked. Jackson checked his watch. 3 hours. Maybe. Maybe. "Time's been weird since this started," Davis said quietly. "Sometimes the sun comes up on schedule. Sometimes it doesn't come up at all." That was a terrifying thought I didn't want to explore. We exited the town hall and started moving west, toward where Harold said the church was. The street was just as empty as before, just as silent. But now I noticed things I'd missed the first time. Dark stains on the sidewalk, abandoned purses and backpacks, a child's bicycle lying on its side, one wheel still slowly spinning. "Don't look at any of it too long," Reeves warned. "Just keep moving." We'd made it maybe 2 blocks when I heard something. A sound like metal scraping on concrete, coming from an alley to our right. "Did you hear that?" I asked. "Keep moving," Reeves ordered. But being me, being stupid, impulsive, hero-complex me, I stopped and looked down the alley. In the dim light from the street lamps, I could see a figure hunched over something. "There's someone there," I said. "Torres," I said, "keep moving. They might need help." Before anyone could stop me, I was walking toward the alley. I heard Reeves curse behind me, heard footsteps as the team followed, but I was already too far ahead. The figure was a man, maybe 30, wearing what had been a business suit. He was crouched on the ground, and the scraping sound was coming from his hands. He was dragging his fingers across the concrete, over and over, wearing them down to bloody stumps. "Sir?" I called out. "Are you okay?" Stupid question. He was very obviously not okay. He turned to look at me, and I saw that his eyes were gone. Not closed, not damaged, just gone. Empty sockets with blood dried around the edges. "I can still see it," he whispered. "Even with my eyes gone, I can still see it. It's inside my head now. It won't stop showing me." "Jesus Christ," Davis breathed behind me. The man stood up, his movements jerky and wrong. "It wants you to look. It's so hungry." so hungry for eyes, for minds, for everything we are. "Sir, we're going to help you," I said, even though I had no idea how. He laughed, tilting his head back toward the sky he could no longer see. "Help? The only help is to stop seeing, stop thinking, stop being." Then he ran, straight toward the wall of a building, full speed, no hesitation. His head hit the brick with a sound like a watermelon dropping on concrete. He collapsed, blood pooling around him, his ruined fingers still twitching. I stood there, frozen, unable to process what I'd just seen. A man had just killed himself right in front of me because death was better than whatever was in his head. "Torres!" Reeves grabbed my arm, pulling me back toward the street. "I told you to keep moving." "I told you not to try to help without checking with me first." He was already gone. They're all gone. Everyone in this town who looked at that thing is dead or dying, and we can't save them. She was right. I knew she was right. But it didn't make it any easier to accept. We kept moving toward the church. Nobody spoke. The only sounds were our footsteps and the horrible silence of the dead town around us. The church appeared out of the darkness like something from a nightmare. It was old, made of white stone that seemed to glow in the dim light. Harold had been right. There were no windows, just solid walls and a heavy wooden door. "Looks intact," Jackson said, checking the perimeter. "No signs of forced entry." Reeves approached the door and knocked. "This is Lieutenant Hannah Reeves, U.S. Armed Forces. If anyone's in there, we're here to help." Still nothing. "Maybe they're all dead," Davis suggested quietly. Then we heard it, the sound of something heavy being dragged away from the door. Locks clicking open. 1, 2, 3, 4. How many locks did this door have? Finally, the door opened a crack. A man's face appeared, lit by a flashlight from inside. He was maybe 50, with a thick beard and wild eyes. "How many of you?" he demanded. "5, Reeves answered. "We're here to evacuate survivors." "You looked at it?" "No. We've kept our eyes down." "How do I know you're not contaminated?" "You don't," Reeves admitted. "But if we were, we'd already be dead or dying. Let us in, please." The man studied us for a long moment, then opened the door wider. "Quick, get inside." We hurried through the door, and he immediately slammed it shut behind us, throwing all the locks back into place. Inside, the church was lit by dozens of candles and battery-powered lanterns, and huddled throughout the space, sitting in pews, lying on the floor, clustered in corners, were people, maybe 40 or 50 of them. "Thank God," a woman said, standing up. She was older, maybe 70, wearing a cardigan over a nightgown. "We thought no one was coming. We thought we'd been forgotten." "How long have you been in here?" Reeves asked. 3 days, the bearded man said. "Since the last time it got really bad. We had more people, but some of them couldn't handle being locked in here. They opened the door and ran out." "Where did they go? Where do you think?" The woman in the cardigan moved closer, and I could see tears on her face. "My husband was one of them. He said he'd rather die than spend another day trapped in here." He opened the door and looked up, and I watched him fall. Watched his eyes bleed. Watched his skull cave in. And I couldn't do anything to stop it. I felt my throat tighten. "I'm sorry. Everyone in this town has lost someone," the bearded man said. "Most of us have lost everyone." I looked around the church at the faces of the survivors. They all had the same expression, hollow, exhausted, broken. These weren't people anymore. They were ghosts, just waiting for the final blow that would end their suffering. "We're going to get you out of here," Reeves announced, her voice strong and clear. "We have armored vehicles that can transport you safely. We'll take you somewhere the sky can't reach you." "Where?" someone called out. "Where can we go that's safe?" "Underground facilities, bunkers, anywhere without exposure to the sky." "For how long?" another voice asked. "A week? A month? Forever?" Reeves didn't have an answer for that. The bearded man stepped closer. "You want to know what this is? I'll tell you what this is. That observatory on Miller's Peak, they were studying what they called a blind spot in space, a place where light went but never came back. They thought it was fascinating. They built a telescope to look at it directly. Harold at the town hall mentioned the observatory," I said. "He said the scientists there all died." "Not just died. They were the first to see it, the first to understand what they'd been looking at. And once they understood, it understood them back. It learned how to look at us the same way we looked at it. And when it looks at you—" He trailed off, his hands shaking. "Your brain liquefies," I finished. He nodded. "It's not from our world. It's not even from our dimension. It's something that exists in a space we're not meant to perceive. The scientists opened a window, and now we can't close it. There has to be a way," I insisted. "Everything can be stopped. Everything can be fought." "Can you fight the sky itself?" he asked. "Can you kill something that doesn't have a body? Something that exists in a way we can't even comprehend?" Before I could answer, Davis suddenly grabbed his head, stumbling backward. Oh God, no." "Davis!" Reeves moved toward him. "What's wrong?" "I saw it. When we were outside. I looked up for just a second. Just 1 second. I didn't mean to." Blood started dripping from his nose. No, Davis was saying, backing away from us, his hands pressed against his head. "It's in there. I can feel it in my head. It's showing me things that shouldn't exist." Reeves moved toward him, but he held up his hand to stop her. "Don't," he gasped. "Don't come near me. I don't know what I might do." More blood ran from his nose, dripping onto the floor. The survivors in the church were backing away, moving to the far corners, terror on their faces. They'd seen this before. They knew what came next. "Davis, listen to me," Reeves said, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "We can help you. There's no help," he shouted. "You said it yourself. Once you're contaminated, you just wait to die." He was right. She had said that. And now we were all watching this kid, this 20-year-old kid who'd joked with me in the truck, realize he was going to die in agony. "How long?" Davis asked, his voice cracking. "How long do I have?" "Could be hours," Jackson said quietly. "Could be days." "I don't want days," Davis whispered. "I don't want to feel my brain turn to liquid. I don't want to be aware while it happens." He pulled out his sidearm, and everyone in the church tensed. "Davis, put the gun down," Reeves ordered. "I'm sorry, Lieutenant. I'm so sorry." Tears were mixing with the blood on his face. "Tell my mom I tried to be brave. Davis, don't..." The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space. Davis dropped to the floor, and the candles flickered from the shockwave. Blood pooled around his head, mixing with the darker fluid that had been leaking from his nose and ears. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. We just stared at the body of a kid who'd been alive and joking an hour ago. Then chaos erupted. People were screaming, crying, pushing toward the door. The bearded man was shouting for everyone to stay calm, but nobody was listening. I saw the old woman in the cardigan collapse, sobbing. Saw children clinging to their parents, saw the absolute breakdown of any hope these people had left. "Everyone stay back from the door," Reeves yelled. But it was useless. The crowd was panicking, and panic was contagious. Someone, a young guy in his 20s, shoved past the bearded man and started unlocking the door. "No! Don't open it!" Jackson shouted. But the guy wasn't listening. He threw the locks open and yanked the door wide. "I'm not dying in here. I'm not ending up like him." He ran out into the street and immediately looked up. Through the open door, I could see him stop, could see his expression change from fear to wonder, could see him smile that horrible smile. "It's beautiful," he breathed. Then his nose started bleeding and he fell to his knees. "Close the door," Reeves commanded. Jackson moved to shut it, but more people were pushing toward the opening. A woman with a baby ran through, heading into the darkness. A teenage boy followed, then another person, and another. "They're going to die!" I shouted, grabbing a man who was about to run. "You can't go out there!" He punched me in the face, a solid hit that made my vision blur and my nose explode with pain. I stumbled backward, tripping over Davis's body, falling hard on the church floor. By the time I got my bearings back, half the people in the church had fled. The bearded man and Reeves had managed to close the door again, but it was too late. At least 20 people were gone. "God damn it!" Reeves slammed her fist against the wall. "We just lost half our survivors." "They were scared," the bearded man said, breathing hard. "They'd been trapped in here for days. When they saw that soldier die, something broke in them." I got to my feet, wiping blood from my nose. My face throbbed where the guy had hit me, and I was pretty sure something was broken. But that seemed like a minor problem compared to everything else. "How many people are left?" I asked. The bearded man did a quick count. 23, including 5 children. Children, Jesus Christ, there were children here. I looked around and saw them huddled with their parents, their eyes wide with terror. The youngest looked maybe 5 years old. "We need to get them out now," I said, "before anyone else panics." "And go where?" Jackson asked. "We lost Davis. We're down to 4 armed personnel. We don't know if those armored trucks are even still functional. So what? We just stay here and wait to die? I'm saying we need a plan beyond run outside and hope for the best." Reeves was pacing, thinking. I could see her mind working, calculating odds and possibilities. The observatory. Harold said it started at the observatory. If we can get there, maybe we can find something. Some way to reverse this or stop it or at least understand it. "You want to go to the place where this all started?" Jackson looked at her like she'd lost her mind. "That's suicide." "Everything about this mission is suicide," Reeves shot back. "But it's the only lead we have." "I'll go," I said, which was probably the dumbest thing I'd said all night. And that was really saying something. Everyone stared at me. "You're not military," Jackson pointed out. "You're not even armed properly. You're a liability." "I'm also the only one here with forensic training. If there's evidence at that observatory, documents, samples, anything, I'm the best chance you have of understanding it." Reeves considered this. He's right. We need someone who can analyze whatever we find there. "This is insane," Jackson muttered, but he didn't argue further. The bearded man stepped forward. "I'm coming too." "No," Reeves said immediately. "You need to stay here with the survivors." "My name is Daniel Moss. I was a professor at the university before all this. I taught astrophysics. If there's scientific data at that observatory, you'll need someone who can read it. Can you handle yourself out there?" He smiled grimly. "I've made it 3 months in this hell." "I think I can manage a 3-mile drive." Reeves looked at the remaining survivors, 23 terrified people with nowhere else to go. "Jackson, you stay here. Guard the survivors. If we're not back by dawn, evacuate whoever you can. And if dawn doesn't come, then pray we find something at that observatory." We gathered what supplies we could: flashlights, weapons, a first aid kit. I found a handgun that had belonged to Davis and took it, even though I'd only fired a gun a handful of times in my life. It felt heavy and wrong in my hand, but better to have it and not need it than the other way around. As we prepared to leave, the old woman in the cardigan approached me. Up close, I could see how exhausted she was, how the last few days had aged her decades. "Young man," she said quietly, "thank you for trying to help us. Even if—" She trailed off. We're going to stop this, I told her, trying to sound confident. I promise. She smiled sadly. Don't make promises you can't keep. But I appreciate the sentiment. We moved to the door, and Daniel prepared to open it. Remember, eyes down, move fast, don't stop for anything. I know, I muttered. I got it the first 5 times. You almost got yourself killed twice already tonight, Reeves said. Forgive me for not trusting your survival instincts. She had a point. Daniel unlocked the door and pulled it open. Outside, the street was littered with bodies. The people who'd fled the church had all looked up, and they'd all paid the price. I counted at least 15 corpses, their heads caved in, blood pooling around them in the streetlight. The woman with the baby was among them. She'd fallen on top of her child, as if trying to protect it even as her brain liquefied. It was the most horrible thing I'd ever seen, and I've seen a lot of horrible things in my career. Move, Reeves ordered, and we stepped over the bodies, heading back toward where we'd left the armored trucks. The vehicles were still there, engines running, exactly as we'd left them. But something felt wrong. The air was thicker than before, harder to breathe, and the silence was somehow louder, more oppressive. Get in, quick, Reeves said. We climbed into the nearest truck. Daniel took the driver's seat. Apparently he'd had military training years ago. Reeves sat in the passenger seat, and I was in the back, clutching my borrowed gun like it could actually protect me from what was out there. The truck lurched forward, and we started driving through the dead streets of Millbrook, past abandoned cars and empty buildings, past bodies lying in the street, past a playground where swings moved in a breeze I couldn't feel, the chains creaking in the silence. How far to the observatory? I asked. 3 miles, straight up the mountain road, Daniel said. Should take about 15 minutes. Should take being the key words, because nothing about this night had gone according to plan. We'd made it maybe a mile when Reeves suddenly leaned forward, staring at something on the road ahead. Stop the truck. What is it? There's someone standing in the road. I looked through the windshield. She was right. A figure stood in the middle of the street, silhouetted by our headlights. They weren't moving, just standing there. Go around them, I suggested. It's a child, Daniel said quietly. My stomach dropped. He was right. As we got closer, I could see it was a little girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old. She was wearing pajamas and no shoes. Her hair was hanging in her face, and she wasn't looking up. Her head was down, eyes on the ground. We can't just leave her, I said, already reaching for the door handle. Torres, don't, Reeves warned. It could be a trap. She's a child. She's probably contaminated. But I was already opening the door, already stepping out of the truck, because I'm an idiot who can't leave well enough alone, because seeing a child alone in the dark was something my brain couldn't handle without trying to help. Hello? I called out, approaching slowly. Are you okay? The girl didn't respond, didn't move, just stood there with her head down. Sweetie, where are your parents? Nothing. I got closer, close enough to see that her feet were bleeding from walking barefoot on the concrete, close enough to see that she was shaking. It's okay, I said gently. We're here to help. Can you come with us? Can you? She looked up. Her eyes were gone. Just like the man in the alley, just empty sockets where her eyes should have been. But unlike him, she was smiling. It told me to wait here, she said in a small, sweet voice. It said you'd come. It wants to meet you. Then she started laughing, and blood poured from her empty eye sockets like tears. I stumbled backward, my heart hammering so hard I thought my chest would explode. The little girl kept laughing, that horrible sweet sound mixed with the wet gurgle of blood in her throat. "It sees you, Ethan Torres," she said, and hearing my name from her mouth made my blood run cold. "It's been watching you all night, waiting for you." "Torres, get back in the truck," Reeves was shouting, but I was frozen, staring at this child who shouldn't know my name, who shouldn't be alive without eyes. The girl tilted her head, blood still streaming down her face. "It wants to show you something beautiful, something no one else has ever seen. All you have to do is look up." My eyes started to drift upward. I couldn't help it. It was like something was pulling my gaze, forcing my head back. A gunshot cracked through the air. The bullet hit the ground next to the girl, and she flinched. Whatever spell she'd been weaving broke, and I snapped back to reality. I ran for the truck, diving through the open door as Daniel hit the gas. "What the hell was that?" I gasped, my whole body shaking. "It's learning," Daniel said, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. "It's figuring out how to manipulate us, how to use what we care about against us." That was a child. That was a corpse being puppeted by something we can't understand, Reeves said coldly. The girl died when she looked at it. What's left is just bait. I felt sick. That little girl with the bleeding eye sockets had been someone's daughter, someone's sister. And now she was a thing, a tool used by whatever was in the sky above us. We drove in silence for another few minutes, climbing the winding mountain road toward the observatory. The trees on either side were all dead, their branches bare and twisted like skeletal hands reaching for the sky. Finally, the observatory came into view. It was a white dome sitting on top of the mountain, gleaming in the starlight. But there was something wrong with it. The dome had been split open, torn apart from the inside, metal and concrete scattered across the peak like someone had detonated a bomb. "Jesus," Daniel whispered. "What happened here?" We parked the truck as close as we could get and stepped out, keeping our eyes firmly on the ground. The smell hit me immediately, that same copper and rot smell from Millbrook, but 1,000 times stronger. I gagged, pressing my sleeve over my nose and mouth. The observatory entrance was a shattered door hanging off its hinges. Inside, emergency lights flickered, casting everything in a sickly red glow. "Stay close," Reeves ordered, her weapon raised. We moved through the destroyed building. Equipment was smashed, papers scattered everywhere, dark stains covering the walls and floor. And bodies. So many bodies. Scientists in lab coats, their heads caved in, their faces frozen in expressions of wonder and terror. "Look for anything useful," Daniel said, moving to a computer terminal that was somehow still functioning. Files, research notes, anything that might tell us what they were studying. I started searching through the papers on the floor, trying not to look at the corpses. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the documents. Then I found something, a journal, handwritten notes in cramped, desperate handwriting. "I've got something," I said, flipping through the pages. "It's a research log. Listen to this. Day 47. We've confirmed it. The anomaly isn't empty space. It's an entity, something vast and incomprehensible that exists in dimensions we can barely perceive. When we look at it through the telescope, it looks back. And when it looks at us, our minds can't handle what they're seeing. The human brain physically breaks down trying to process something that shouldn't exist." "Keep reading," Reeves urged. I flipped ahead, finding entries that became increasingly frantic. Day 52. 3 team members are dead. They stayed too long at the telescope. Their brains liquefied while they were still conscious. God help us. They were screaming about beautiful things, impossible things, things that made them want to die, just so they could see more clearly. My hands found the last entry, dated 3 months ago. Day 63. It's expanding. The anomaly is growing. spreading across the sky. Soon everyone will be able to see it without telescopes. We tried to close the observatory to destroy our equipment, but it's too late. We opened a door that can't be closed. We showed it our world, and now it wants to consume everything. To anyone reading this, don't look up. For the love of God, don't look up. And if you want to stop it, you have to... The entry ended there, the words trailing off into a bloodstain. Stop it, how? I shouted at the dead page. How do we stop it? Daniel had pulled up something on the computer terminal. I found their research data. They were using a massive telescope array to study the anomaly. The equipment generated a focused beam of observation. Essentially, they created a concentrated way to look at it. So? I asked. So if looking at it makes it stronger, makes it able to look back at us, then maybe... He trailed off, typing frantically. Maybe we can reverse the process. Use the telescope array to close the window they opened. How? Reeves asked. By destroying the array. If we blow up the telescope, we sever the connection. The anomaly might retreat, or at least stop spreading. Might? I repeated. It's the best idea I've got, Daniel admitted. Reeves checked her equipment. I've got enough explosives to bring this place down. But we'd need to set them manually, which means staying here while we rig everything. How long? 20 minutes, maybe 30. I looked at my watch. It was almost 5 a.m. Dawn should be coming soon, but like Jackson had said, sometimes the sun didn't come up anymore. Sometimes the darkness just stayed. Let's do it, I said. We don't have any other options. We spent the next 20 minutes rigging explosives throughout the observatory, focusing on the telescope array's main supports. Daniel explained the structural weak points while Reeves and I placed the charges. My hands were shaking the whole time, and I kept expecting something to happen, for more puppeted corpses to appear, for the building to collapse, for my brain to start liquefying. But nothing happened. The observatory was silent except for our footsteps and breathing. Finally, Reeves placed the last charge. That's it. We need to get at least half a mile away before we detonate. We ran back to the truck and drove down the mountain as fast as the road would allow. My heart was pounding, adrenaline making everything feel sharp and bright and terrifying. When we were far enough away, Reeves pulled out the detonator. Everyone ready? Do it, Daniel said. She pressed the button. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the top of the mountain erupted in a massive fireball. The explosion was so loud it felt like the world was ending, the shock wave rocking our truck even from this distance. The observatory dome disintegrated, metal and concrete and glass raining down the mountainside, and then the sky changed. I couldn't help it. I looked up. But it wasn't the swirling wrong nightmare anymore. The stars were just stars. The moon was just the moon. Everything was normal, or as normal as it had been before this all started. It's gone, Daniel whispered. The anomaly is gone. We drove back to Millbrook as the sun finally rose. Actually rose, painting the sky pink and orange like it was supposed to. The streets were still littered with bodies, still soaked in blood, but the oppressive weight in the air had lifted. At the church, Jackson was still guarding the survivors. When he saw us, his face broke into a smile, the first genuine smile I'd seen all night. Is it over? He asked. It's over, Reeves confirmed. The survivors began emerging from the church, blinking in the early morning sunlight. Some were crying, some were laughing. Most just stood there in shock, unable to believe they'd survived. The old woman in the cardigan approached me, tears streaming down her face. You did it. You actually did it. We got lucky, I admitted. No, she said firmly. You were brave. You were stupid and reckless, but you were brave. You saved us. Over the next few hours, more military trucks arrived. Proper evacuation began. Medical personnel started treating survivors. The bodies were collected and covered. The town of Millbrook would never recover from this. 2,300 people dead, an entire community destroyed, but at least it wouldn't spread further. As I sat in the back of an ambulance getting my broken nose treated, Reeves sat down next to me. "You did good work tonight, Torres," she said. "I almost got killed about 6 times." "Yeah, you did. Your survival instincts are terrible, and you have no sense of self-preservation whatsoever." She paused. "But you also never gave up. Never stopped trying to help people, even when it was hopeless. That's worth something." "Is it worth Davis? Or those people who ran from the church? Or that little girl in the road?" "No," Reeves said quietly. "Nothing's worth that. But if we hadn't stopped it, thousands more would have died. Maybe millions. You helped save them." I nodded, though it didn't make me feel much better. I kept thinking about Davis's last words, about the woman whose husband had run outside, about Harold still hiding in his basement. My phone buzzed. Signal was back. I had 17 missed calls from my sister. "I need to make a call," I told Reeves. She nodded and walked away, giving me privacy. My sister answered on the first ring. "Ethan! Oh my God, where have you been? I've been trying to reach you all night." "I'm sorry," I said, my voice cracking. "I'm so sorry I missed your wedding." "Forget the wedding. There's been news about some kind of emergency in Oregon. They're saying hundreds of people died. Are you okay?" "Yeah," I lied. "Yeah, I'm okay. I just got stuck in traffic, phone died. I'm sorry." We talked for a few more minutes, but I couldn't tell her the truth. How do you explain what happened? How do you tell someone about the sky that kills you when you look at it? When I finally hung up, the sun was fully up, warm and bright and normal. Emergency crews were working throughout Millbrook, documenting everything, beginning the impossible task of explaining this to the world. I thought about the journal entry I'd found, about the scientist who'd written that they'd opened a door that couldn't be closed. But we had closed it. Maybe not permanently. Maybe the anomaly was still out there somewhere, in dimensions we couldn't perceive, waiting for another chance to break through. But for now, it was over. I watched the sunrise and tried to feel relief. Tried to feel anything other than exhausted and traumatized and broken. Behind me, I heard Daniel talking to some other scientists who'd arrived. "We need to destroy every telescope array that was studying that region of space. Make sure this can never happen again." And I thought about Harold, still hiding in his basement, afraid to come out even though the danger had passed. About how trauma doesn't end just because the threat is gone. The emergency alert on my phone finally cleared, replaced with a new message. "Threat neutralized. Resume normal activities. Resume normal activities." As if anything would ever be normal again. But we'd survived. 23 people from that church had survived, and that had to count for something. I closed my eyes and felt the sun on my face, and for the first time in 12 hours, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, everything would be okay. Even though I knew I'd spend the rest of my life afraid to look at the sky.